from WCIA 3 Plus. With Ethan Holesha and Tyler Hill, this is Midwest Mashup.
Welcome into Midwest Mashup here at the WCIA studios in Champaign, Illinois, the heart of Central Illinois, and we are making history today. First time we're leading the show off with baseball in the entire show's history. It took us to episode 9, but we are thick in the playoffs. The Cubs, the only team out of our St. Louis, Chicago, and Indianapolis cities that we talk about here that made it, but we're all in on the Cubs right now. Got out of that wild card in the playoffs right now, and with me to talk about everything here today is Ethan Holesha. Ethan, how you doing?
Doing good. It's interesting. The first time we're really leading with baseball here, but this is the biggest news in sports out of these three cities right now. I think it's only fitting that we, start with the Cubs. And it wasn't looking too great, but after a Game 3 win, which we'll get into, things may be looking up for the Cubs. So. Yeah,
great job by the Cubs again getting out of that wild card. Now playing the Brewers, a rival in their division, and man. Like you said, we'll get right into it here. Game 1, Brewers 9, Cubs 3, and that is when it really didn't look good. Cubs bats were still having trouble. But I think the biggest news, or at least the biggest thing I was looking at, is Matthew Boyd just didn't even make it out of the first inning, gave up 6 runs, then 3 runs additionally in the second inning by the pitcher the Cubs brought in to make 9 in the first 2 innings, and the Brewers just cruised from there. What were you looking at in that Game 1?
Well, it's just interesting because, Michael Busch led the game off. He homered, gave the Cubs that early lead, and then Brewers just laid it on. I mean, Matthew Boyd got shelled in the first, like you mentioned. They give up 6 runs in the first, and then the Brewers have 9 by the end of the second, and they kind of just cruise the rest of the way. Yes, if you give up 6 runs in the first inning, which tied a franchise record,
not a great start.
Brewers, you can't really expect to win the game. There was a costly fielding error by Nico Horner during that inning. It kind of extended things, and it just seemed like nothing was really going the Cubs' way. And I know Milwaukee's arguably the best team in baseball, and they're at home, so it's you don't maybe expect to win both those games on the road, but to lose in the way that they did, it was kind of embarrassing for them.
Not a great Game 1, and that pretty much continued in the same way for Game 2. Brewers take that one 7-3. The Cubs actually did jump out to an early lead there off of a Suzuki homer, but the Brewers, much like that first game, shelled Imanaga. Was 3-2-3 after the first inning, and then the Brewers went off from there. Imanaga comes out of the game before the third inning. Another early exit for the Cubs pitchers here.
Yeah, and that's just what you don't want to see in a lot of going into the playoffs was, hey, Justin Steele's been out the whole year. He's been their ace. That's a guy that, he would come in and he'd start these Game 1s, these games on the road that the Cubs really need to have dominant pitching performances in. But like you mentioned, the Cubs for the second straight game, they come out with a lead. Suzuki, he gives them the 3-0 lead, and we're like, all right, the Cubs are in business here. And then Andrew Vaughn, former White Sox, comes in, who's had an awesome year for the Brewers.
Yes.
He tied it up, and then from there, the Brewers kind of ran away with this one.
Yeah, really pulled away. Didn't look close by the end there. And I think out of the first 2 games before we get to the win here, the Cubs bats, not only were the pitchers not playing well, they weren't hitting very well either. Just 4 hits in Game 2, 6 in Game 1, and then the Brewers had double-digit hits in both of those games. And that's supposed to be kind of the hallmark. That's where you lay your hat if you're a Cubs fan is, hey, we have an explosive offense that can carry us through October. What do they need to do to get that back and start actually putting up some runs here?
Yeah, the big guys, the big names just need to step up in the big moments. We've seen PCA the last couple of months. He's kind of just chasing pitches in the dirt, just things that you really don't want to be swinging at. And I understand this is his first full kind of breakout year, and he's still a young player trying to find his footing. But when you have guys like Tucker getting out, striking out multiple times a game, your big bats are just not performing. You're going to find yourself in a hole and find yourself in a hole fast. They even scored 3 runs in the first inning in this second game, but then you have guys like William Contreras. He hit the solo shot that put the Brewers up, and then Jackson Churio really blew it open in the fourth. He hit that 3-run homer. Milwaukee's up 7-3, and when you find yourself down 3 to 4 runs in these playoff games against an elite team like the Brewers, you cannot be playing from behind.
Yeah, and you start to tighten up a little bit. I wonder if the moment gets to you, right? Even though they are pros, this is a pressure-packed atmosphere. This is different than the regular season, right? You can do everything great through the regular season, be swinging the bat well, and then it gets to the playoffs. It's just a different animal. We see this in other sports too, right? In football, it's okay, now you have to run the ball better because the weather gets colder. Basketball, defense tightens up a little bit compared to the regular season. And you see the same thing in baseball. Hitting gets a lot tougher as pitchers are able to game plan for just one team, but you're able to do it as hitters too, so you got to put in that work to be able to get bats on balls if you're a Cubs player. But The good news: Cubs win
Finally.
Game 3
Yep.
and force a Game 4 in Wrigley. They take that one 4-3. Even though they won, did you see anything really different with this Cubs team, or was it just, hey, we finally were able to keep the Brewers from getting those 7 and 9 runs?
I think the pitching was a lot better in this game. We saw Jameson Taillon pitch 4 innings. You know, he had a decent start. He gave up 2 runs on 5 hits.
But he made it out of the
had
first.
3
Like,
saves. Yeah.
this is an improvement.
No, exactly. And it's interesting to see a trend. I don't know if this is just coincidence or not, but Milwaukee struck first. Every road team in this series has scored in the first inning, and then the Cubs countered that immediately. Michael Butch hit a leadoff homer for the Cubs. And
He's been great.
Yeah, he's been the highlight of this team so far. And then PCA hits the RBI single, drives in the 2 runs, and the Cubs kind of found themselves in that Brewers role where it's like, hey, the other team's gonna score, but we're gonna pour it on even more in the bottom of the first. So
Yeah, so again, we got Game 4 actually coming up today as we record, and so we'll have a special guest for you, we're hoping,
yes,
right in this next segment. But before we get to him, talking about some of the atmosphere around Wrigley, and I'm sure it's going to be insane. A ton of fans coming out, people in Wrigleyville, even if they're not going to the game, right? This is a big deal for Chicago. What do you need to see, or what are you honing in on? And you can say, hey, this is the X factor. If the Cubs do this, they're going to be in a great spot to force Game 5.
So we have a pitching rematch from Game 1. It's going to be Freddie Peralta against Matthew Boyd again. I think the Cubs batters, if they're not even getting hits, just trying to extend at-bats, wear out that starter, because Peralta had a good Game 1, outside of giving up a run in the first inning. I mean, the Cubs had a couple of solo shots later on against the bullpen, but the damage was too little too late. I need Matthew Boyd to come out and get through the first inning. I think you got to take it 1 inning at a time here.
Which you would think is kind of a low bar, but again, yeah, this Brewers offense has been amazing, really led by Andrew Vaughn, again, that White Sox legend down in your place. How does it feel to see him doing this? You know, albeit it is for another team, but it's a guy that has been your guy at times.
No, it's cool. I mean, he just coming up, like he was one of our top prospects and a guy that was supposed to really develop into a player, and we kind of saw that a little bit in that 2021 season when the White Sox made the playoffs, but one thing led to another, and kind of everybody from that core really fell off, including Vaughn this season. I mean, he was a liability at the plate, and when we released him and the Brewers picked him up, he was starting in AAA. But for whatever reason, halfway through the season when they brought him up, he was batting like 400 for a month. He's hitting home runs every game. And it's when he hit the 3-run homer, I saw a Brewers fan holding up a White Sox Andrew Vaughn jersey, and I'm like, we will never forget you, Andrew.
It took you back. White Sox legend, Andrew Vaughn, although kind of not really. I'm sure most people will not remember him in 5 years.
100%.
I wonder if he'll get remembered more as a Brewer now. Honestly, after having this type of run, and I guess it depends on the postseason success of the Brewers, but he could become a Brewers legend pretty quickly.
100%. And it's funny when you look at teams like the Red Sox, they have Garrett Crochet and Lucas Giolito who are on the White Sox for years. And, the White Sox had Crochet on an innings limit, and this year he pitches the most innings in the majors. He's the AL Cy Young favorite. It's just like all these good players that leave the White Sox, they go to actually like competent teams,
right, contenders,
and they perform. So it's like clearly it's a franchise thing, but I digress.
The anti-White Sox bump. Yeah. Is that something we can start coining?
I think so. I mean, the White Sox are the only team that don't fly out free agents on private flights. So it's just like, man, one thing leads to another, and it definitely is a culture thing. I mean, when you have teams like even the Cubs, they haven't historically been one of the better franchises, but they're a household name, and they have the money to go out and spend on these free agents, and the fans really get behind them. And I think that has a big impact. And even on a team like the Brewers, who you wouldn't say is like a huge market team, but they're always pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, as we get back to X factors for this game, it's going to be the bats. And we talked about it, right? You put up 3 runs, and 4 runs. And for a Cubs team that's supposed to have this explosive offense led by PCA, led by Kyle Tucker, who's up for hundreds of millions of dollars coming out of this year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's supposed to be your core and your dudes. And so you have to lean on them, right? It's not exactly like football, because in football you have the salary cap. It's like, oh, if we're paying you a lot, you need to perform. Baseball's not the exact same, but it's, hey,
right,
if we're going to invest a lot of time, a lot of money into you, you guys have to be the guys that are going to step up here. So I'm looking for them to put up more than 5 runs because, again, as explosive an offense they are, the Brewers are right there, and they've shown it by putting up 7 and 9 runs in 2 different games this year. So you got to be able to keep pace with that. And obviously, you need the pitching to also not give up 9 runs, but I think it's a great start, and hopping out to a quick start would be great to see a win here for the Cubs.
And even yesterday with the win that they had, I mean, they kind of just got by the hair on their chin, if you want to use a phrase, but it's like the Cubs took that early 4-1 lead, and then they gave up a couple runs, and the Brewers had bases loaded in the eighth inning. It was a 4-3 game, and luckily with the Brad Keller who came in the game, he struck out Bowers, who was a guy that scored some runs in this game before. I don't know. It's like, yes, the win yesterday was great, but like you said, scoring that 5+ runs, giving yourself a few runs of cushion to make those mistakes. Yes, they had that yesterday, but they could have easily blown that game later in the game because Brewers had runners on base, and I don't know, maybe the home field advantage was the difference in that game, and I think it could be the difference in this one. But like you mentioned, guys like PCA, who is supposed to be the driving person on this offense, and a guy like Kyle Tucker, who's been there and done that for the Houston Astros in the past. He's one of the few guys on this team that has playoff experience. So
a lot of October experience.
So we need a guy like that who's been there before to really lead the way and lead the offensive attack.
Well, you mentioned that home crowd. I'm sure it's going to be a raucous atmosphere there in Wrigley, the friendly confines in Chicago. And we will actually, after this break, be taking you there. We have boots on the ground. Our weatherman, Kevin Lighty, he is their season ticket holder, and he got today off. He's playing a little bit of hooky and going to Wrigley Field to support the Cubs. So coming up after this, we're going to have an interview with him telling you all about the atmosphere, what he thinks is going to happen for this game, and if the Cubs can take it home. Stay with us. Welcome back to Midwest Mashup. My name is Ethan Halesha. I'm one of the hosts. Tyler is unable to join us right now. He's out on assignment for a story, unfortunately. But we do have a very special guest. We have Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighty at WCIA3 at the Friendly Confines. Kevin, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. Vibes are high. We're ready for Game 4 here outside of Wrigley. I'm super excited for tonight. I'm rocking my Holy Cow shirt, a Holy Cow shirt, and then got the blazer going here. We're ready to go. Here at the Federal Landmark, it's going to be an exciting evening of baseball here, so looking forward to it.
I love it, man. I love it. How are the vibes right now? How's everybody in Chicago, just coming down there in the area? What's the vibes like right now?
Yeah, the city, pretty electric. Anytime you get a Chicago sports team that, is in the playoffs here, and everybody's on board here. They got the big win last night, so I think a lot of people are kind of taking their time to get down here. I'm kind of surprised. We're about 2.5 hours before the game starts here, and a little less than a normal time, but I think people were out late last night, enjoying the win, and so they're about ready to get back out here again for Game 4, and just excited to be out here. A lot of people, the general vibe that you get around Wrigley, all the gear, everybody's out here. The weather is fantastic. I mean, it's just gorgeous weather. It's going to be a little chilly. Temperatures out here are going to be down into the 50s here. So we'll see. The wind is kind of blowing from the southeast. And so that's going to basically be pushing the ball a little bit towards the left field, where I'll be sitting. So definitely looking forward to that. So, yeah, it's good. Now, listen, they had John Summit out here DJing yesterday.
Yes.
No such thing here today, unfortunately. I'm really hoping maybe we get a little John Summit action again or somebody. But no DJ out here, but still, I think the vibes are good. And again, later start to be one of the later start times for the Cubs playoff games here this season.
No, yeah, I'm a little surprised by the late time. And you mentioned the weather. I was going to bring that up. Obviously, you're the meteorologist here, but you say it's going to be a little cool. But for playoff baseball, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for. Am I wrong?
That's what you're looking for. I think, as fans, it's kind of the same thing as when you talk about, football weather, but playoff baseball, October baseball, generally you want those cool days where we can wear the sweatshirt. There's cool nights there, but, under the lights. It just feels a little bit different under the lights on a cool night. Everybody, having a good time, whether it's in bleachers or any part of the stand. Wrigley has been electric here at home for the Cubs during the playoffs. Of course, the first 3 games they were home for the wild card, and of course, Game 3, and then now Game 4. And so a few of those games were during the day. Yesterday's game kind of ended at night, but this whole game will be under the lights and at nighttime here at Wrigley. Of course, we're right outside the famous marquee here that is so familiar with everybody. I'll just kind of show you again. You can see, across the way, the very famous Tubby Bear that is over there. Gallagher Way is here behind me, where, again, John Summit was at yesterday. But you can see everybody out here. I'll just kind of do a little bit of a tour here with you, kind of showing you guys what it looks like. But it's fantastic out here, guys. I mean, this is where you want to be if you're a baseball fan, especially if you're a fan of the Cubs. I mean, this is it right here. This guy's dancing, he's doing his thing. It's great. You gotta love it, man. It's Wrigley, baby. This is October baseball.
It is.
Doesn't get any better than that.
It looks like you're in golden hour right now with the sunlight and everything.
Golden hour is happening here as we speak. There we go. We're right now.
You gotta love it.
See, well, you do. I mean, everybody, always out here kind of doing their thing, and the general. I mean, people take some pictures and doing all what they do. So, sorry about that. Running into people here. Just gotta be careful.
Watch out for Kevin. He's decked out in Cubs gear. He's not hard to miss.
I got my Cubs gear on. I mean, there's this guy here. He's wearing Brewer stuff. I don't know. Represent somebody. Oh, look at him over there. You got to be careful for those guys. But all is good here outside of Wrigley, and we'll see what happens. If the Cubs do win, they get to take it up to Milwaukee on Game 5. So we'll have to see.
Absolutely. So going into this game, we have Matthew Boyd versus Freddie Peralta. Bit of a Game 1 rematch here. What do you want to see out of the Cubs tonight? Maybe it's getting the bats awake early, maybe a solid pitching performance from the starter. What do you think is the key to success tonight, Kevin?
Pitching 100%. Matthew Boyd has got to have a game. Matthew Boyd's got to finish more than an inning or two. In his last outing, didn't make it out of the first. So it's going to be really important for him to command that beginning of the game. If you look at what the first innings have been during the course of the playoffs, the first innings have been all the scoring, been all the runs. So we need a goose egg in the first inning for sure, and maybe 2 or 3. I think we need a low scoring game here. The Cubs get out of this. 3-1, 3-2. Pitching has got to do it here tonight, and we need Matthew Boyd to definitely kind of kick things off with that start because he struggled in his last outing, but he was one of the better ones throughout the year. So they're giving him the ball tonight, and so hopefully he can perform.
So you talked about the pitching kind of limiting the Brewers' bats in this game. Who needs to step it up on the offensive side for the Cubs? Who's your click to pick or someone that needs to come up with a big moment here in Game 4?
Wow, I tell you, the guy that has struggled a ton in the playoffs and hasn't done a whole lot for him, but he's a veteran, and he's the guy that's been with the Cubs since 2017, and that's Ian Happ. And his bat's been pretty quiet here during the playoffs. Happ is, one of the guys in the clubhouse, one of the veterans there. I think he needs to definitely go up here tonight, get the bat going, and because that's big during the middle of that lineup. You got Michael Busch that's been leading off and doing incredible with the Cubs. Seiya Suzuki has been hot here in the playoffs. But then you're looking at these guys like Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson. Matt Shaw has done nothing so far. So there's a lot of guys that you can say they're due, but it's their time to step up. But if I had to pick a guy, I'm saying Ian Happ, just being the veteran that he is.
Absolutely, and he's one of those faces that still played with Rizzo and Baez and Bryant and some of those guys. So he knows what it means and what it takes to really get to that deep playoff run or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean it looks awesome there. Now take me through where you're sitting and what a Cubs game looks like for Kevin Lighty.
So I will be in the bleachers. So I'll be out there in left field. You can catch me out in left field there in the bleachers, and just about 2 rows back in left field, and which is ironically where the wind is going to be blowing here tonight. So you never know what can happen there. Maybe I might be catching me a home run ball from Michael Busch. I don't know. Little oppo there, but I'm out there. I'm just going to be enjoying the vibes out here. I hope this is not the Cubs' last game of the season. It'll be very sad. I would love to see this to go to Game 5 in a classic Cubs-Brewers showdown, but still got some work to do.
Listen, as a Sox fan myself, when I was younger, I probably would have been rooting against the Cubs, but I've definitely grown out of that. It's great for the city, great for our show, especially giving us content. Talk to me about, I guess, outside of the game itself, what are some of your favorite foods or drinks, I guess, or any pastimes to take part in at Wrigley Field when you're going to a game, especially in the postseason?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you can't go wrong with, like I said, the Cubby Bear that's over there. Murphy's Bleachers is obviously out in the outfield there behind center field. So I'm a huge fan of the Hotel Zachary that they built that's just across the street. Just a fantastic place over there if you ever want to stay and then not have to walk far. But, the awesome thing about it is every time I come up here, I go somewhere different. I don't go to the same spot every time in terms of food or getting something. The Stolen Saddle is a new place down the way. It's a little country, kind of a country western, but kind of a sports bar. They've got multiple levels there, so there's just so many things. I think that's what I like about Wrigleyville is you have so many options, and of course you cannot forget the classic sluggers. Get in the batting cages, kid. Go see what you can do. Even I get in those batting cages here on my 43rd birthday.
43rd birthday. Yeah, it is Kevin's birthday too, so everybody wish Kevin a happy birthday and everyone wish him a Cubs victory tonight to take this series to a Game 5. Kevin, before we go, and I really appreciate you coming on, especially on your birthday in Chicago. This is awesome. Give me a score prediction for tonight's game.
Oh man, I think we're gonna be low scoring here because we got to be low scoring for the Cubbies to pull this off. So we're gonna go with probably something like man, I hate to say the score that we had last night, but uh, how about a 3-2, 3-2 Cubbies, 3-2 Cubbies.
I like it.
I think low scoring. It's going to be cold. Maybe the ball not flying out as much.
True.
Pitching, nervous hitters here. So we're going to go 3-2 Cubbies.
Awesome. Let's go, Kevin. And again, appreciate it so much for joining our show today at Midwest Mashup.
Keep up the good work there. You guys are doing with the show there. You and Tyler rocking it there, doing some good work. So keep it up there. Thanks for inviting me on the show here from the Federal Landmark.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Have fun. Not too much fun, but go Cubs as always. All right, guys. We'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back in, and thanks so much to Kevin for joining us on that. That's really cool. This is the first time we've done a Zoom interview or anything boots on the ground like that so far. It's just been in the studio, so great to see what's actually happening there in Wrigley. And hopefully, by the time you're watching this, they will have won and forced to Game 5, going back to Milwaukee and have a chance to stay in the postseason, which we didn't hit score predictions. And so that's the last thing I want to take care of before we change gears and move on to football, talking about Colts, Bears, and some other things. Is Ethan, what do you have as a score prediction for Game 4?
I think, this is it's a good pitching matchup. Like I said, it's a Game 1 rematch, so kind of the two aces here going at it. But I think the Cubs take it 5-3. I think they finally get over that 5-run. Well, not over. I guess they'll meet the 5-run threshold that we're looking for. But I think 5-3 Cubs.
Really close to what I had. I had 6-4 actually. Nice. So I do have them. I think the bats come alive. They just have to at some point.
There's too many good players.
Right. The personnel is so good. I just, I can't see them continuing to hit this poorly. They're at home. I think there's some advantages there and send it back to Milwaukee for Game 5. Now, like I said, changing up the sports and the city here as we go to Indianapolis. They took care of the Raiders. 42-6 this past Sunday. Before we get into specific offense, defense, player type of things that we want to hit, the biggest thing that stood out to me was how well coached of a team the Colts were and how that was such a contrast from what we saw in the Raiders in this game.
100%. I mean, you look at the Colts and you're like, this looks like a well-oiled machine. It's like this could be a Super Bowl contender team. I don't know if that's even overreacting, but just things like blocking punts and interceptions, like obviously those things will come, but it's crazy to see how fluid this offense is and just the different looks the defense gave the Raiders in this game. And take it with a grain of salt. It is the Raiders, but it doesn't matter. How many times do we have to say, oh, the Colts played this team, they played this team? No, the Colts are just a very good team.
Yeah, when you think all the time, like the Packers, we thought were this juggernaut, and they lost to the Browns, which is a bad team. And so it's the NFL. There are good teams, there are bad teams, but that gap is just so much closer than, say, like the college game, right? There's no 28-point spread. So anytime you can go out there and get a win by 34 points, by my math correct. I was pretty good at that.
Wow, that was on the fly.
Yeah. It's a great day. And so I think it's also the ideal bounce back coming off that Rams game where 100%. They had 11 penalties and 3 turnovers. You look at this game, they had a punt block on special teams. That's always a mark of a really well-coached team, is that you do take advantage of that third phase of the game. They had 6 penalties to the Raiders 9, and then had 0 turnovers to the Raiders 2. So overall, love what the coaching staff's doing in terms of, hey, we had kind of an undisciplined game with A.D. Mitchell's fumble and the amount of penalties we had last game. Let's tighten it back up and get a big win here. Also, the other thing that really stood out to me, the Raiders are just not a good team.
No,
like,
dude.
really bad. I think it's kind of probably them and Miami competing for that last spot. I don't know if you had anybody else you could throw in there.
I mean, maybe the Jets right now. I
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I feel like the
Yep.
Jets are just like, everyone's like, oh, it's not Justin Fields' fault. It's like, well, he threw 2 garbage time touchdowns when they were down by 21 points. So does it really matter? No, but dude, just watching Geno Smith, I almost feel bad for him, but it's like he kind of got a bag, and it's like, man, I don't know. It's interesting how like Flacco just got traded to the Bengals. I'm like, I'm surprised the Raiders didn't just get a fill-in guy, because Geno Smith, I mean, he's leading the league in interceptions, and then even the Raiders defense. I mean, if you look at this game, the Colts scored on 6 straight red zone possessions. They were 6 for 6 on touchdowns in the red zone, and obviously they were not going for field goals because Spencer Schrader got hurt, which we'll get into later. But yeah, the Raiders are just not a great team, and it's like, yes, that Bears win was electric against the Raiders, but it's like that should not really have been a close game looking back at it.
Yeah, not a great team. Geno just turned the ball over time after time. But we are not a Raiders podcast. We are Colts and Bears. So we're going to give our flowers here to the Colts.
Absolutely.
Another Steichen and Jones masterclass in terms of the offense. You already hit on. I mean, anytime you see 40 points in the NFL, that is an amazing day. And specifically, I wanted to give a shout out to Michael Pittman Jr. in this game, 5 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown. Going into the year, we were very excited to get him back. Last year, had a broken back, played through it, and so, had a down year statistically, right? If you had him on your fantasy team, he was not a good asset. I know, because he was on mine.
Same here.
But this year, he has bounced back in a big way, and he does so many things for this offense. It's cool to actually see him fully healthy.
It is, and it's like, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, you look at Michael Pittman and you're like, here's a guy that could get up to that 90 yards, 100-yard game. But it's like, at this point in his career, he's just still getting it done time after time. I think he's found himself as a consistent target for Daniel Jones, which he needs to be. He doesn't have to be this guy that's going out and getting 10 catches a game, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, because you have guys like Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce when he's healthy. We thought A.D. Mitchell might be a guy that's going to be in that role, but not so much. But yes, I like that you shouted out Michael Pittman, because he's been everything that the Colts have needed. That's kind of what they were missing last year.
Yeah, the dirty work is where you really see him as well. He might not have eye-popping stats, but he's so big. He's 6'4", 220. I don't think you think about that when you just look at him on the field, but he's basically a second tight end out there in terms of how he can block, what they can do with him in the run game. Most catches on the team and 4 touchdowns as well. So just hitting on, like you said, that really reliable target, a big body over the middle, great catch radius, so Jones can trust him on 3rd down. Also, he was tied for 9th in first downs in the league. So just really reliable guy is kind of what we're saying here. Like you said, not taking the top off like an Alec Pierce, but just a good, solid receiver. You can have Jones, another very good game on offense. Going back to an episode we did in the preseason. So Mike Sando had him ranked 30th in the preseason QB tiers. And actually, I shouldn't say Mike Sando had him ranked. He talks to 50 different decision makers, whether it's GMs, defensive coaches, offensive coaches around the league, and they put QBs into tiers coming in this year. Daniel Jones was 30th. That was around guys, as I look, like Joe Flacco at 31, J.J. McCarthy at 29, Anthony Richardson at 32, and Spencer Rattler at 33. So it was not great company there.
I remember that, yeah, doing that episode. Yeah.
But now we have the benefit of hindsight looking back at this first 5 weeks. Where would you put Jones in this list now?
If we are accounting the injuries that have taken place this year,
yes,
you could say that he's a fringe top 5 quarterback right now.
Woo!
That's my hot take. I think he's behind guys like Mahomes, Allen, Mayfield, maybe Goff right now, maybe Matt Stafford, but on my short list for this season so far, that's kind of it. Lamar's been out multiple weeks. Joe Burrow's been out. So obviously when you have guys back like that, yeah, I'd say Daniel Jones is maybe towards that 10 range, but I think as of the way that he is playing right now, he currently leads the league in QBR with 79.7. So it's like that's a great stat right there. And I don't know, I might have him right in that Matthew Stafford kind of top, like fringe top 5 spot. That's me personally.
Yeah, I have him more in that 10 range when you talk about where some of those guys, Baker Mayfield's at 11, Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud are tied for 9th, and then you got Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Purdy as you keep going down in that 12, 13, 14 spot. So I think that range right now is a great place to have. I mean, if you would have told Colts fans going this year, hey, Daniel Jones will be somewhere in the 10th to 12th best quarterback in the league, I mean, they would take that for sure. But just going through guys I'm looking at, I think he's passed up Geno, obviously, as we talked about. Bo Nix is a guy who's not playing very good right now alongside Tua And then Aaron Rodgers was the other one where he was voted 16th coming into this year. Not really sure why.
No, I think it's just because of the name and the Hall of Fame.
It's gotta be, right?
He has at this point, but yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is clearly a shell of who he used to be. I think Jaden Daniels is a guy maybe that escaped my mind when I was thinking of this, and I'd probably put him above. I definitely put him above Daniel Jones when he's healthy, but he's been out a little bit there this season. But Daniel Jones has just been consistent this year, and he's been on the field. He's been consistent. He's getting touchdowns, limiting turnovers, and he's given the Colts an opportunity to win every single game. And they should have won every game to this point.
Yeah, and that's really all you can ask for, right? You want your quarterback to put you in a position to win. Also something to monitor, just last little quick thing here for the offense. So A.D. Mitchell coming off that fumble we talked about on what should have been a 75-yard touchdown against the Rams would have, on the score theoretically tied it 27-27. You can't go back and change it, but he only played 6 snaps this game, even with Alec Pierce out. Ashton Dolan, number 16, if you guys have not seen him before, which you probably haven't, didn't play a lot outside of preseason. He had 47 snaps. And so it looks like, I don't know if this will be just a 1-week thing, but at least for the time being, coming off of that big mistake Mitchell made, Dolan has kind of taken over those snaps. And then we'll see Alec Pierce right now is still questionable coming out of that concussion. So if he comes back, I would assume all the snaps go to him, but it seems like A.D. Mitchell's in the doghouse a little bit.
100%. And I think that's exactly why this happened. Like we saw Demercado on the Cardinals, kind of the same thing happened this week, and I kind of expect that to happen to him as well. Obviously, coaches, that's one of the last things they want to see. And Doolin ended up having the most receiving yards with 55, which is obviously guys like Downs had 54, Warren had 44 receiving yards. But yeah, I think Doolin was in that role just because of A.D. Mitchell's very bad week before.
I mean, just mental mistake after mental mistake. I didn't even hit on the holding that called back Jonathan Taylor's 50-yard run. I mean,
exactly.
That's just unplayable. No matter the talent, if you're going to make mistakes like that, take 14 points off the board, I just don't think coaches can put you back out there.
Yeah, and I think for a young receiver like A.D. Mitchell, just realizing that some of your actions in game have these kind of consequences, it could flip the script for you and turn things around, and I think that's what the Colts are really going for, because A.D. Mitchell is still a guy that is skilled and talented, and we know what he could bring to the table, but when you're a liability and you're ultimately the reason why a team loses a game, things like this are going to happen.
Just got to get it out of your own way. We see the big plays, both in joint practices, but also this year in games. Like, he has played really well at times. Even that mistake is on a 75-yard touchdown that he should have had, but you just got to get out of your own way. We're going to hit a quick break here. Coming back, we will hit the defense coming out of this game. Then talk about the Bears coming off their bye week. They got a game against the Commanders. I know that has a lot of bad memories for Bears fans, including
way
Malesha,
too many bad memories
right next to me. But we will get all into that, and even hit a little bit of Blackhawks at the end of the show coming up after this. Welcome back to Midwest Mashup as we wrap up the Colts beating the Raiders. That was 40-6 this past weekend. Just an absolute shellacking of a team that is in the wilderness right now, both literally in Las Vegas, but also figuratively. They don't really know what's going on there.
They don't.
With the Raiders. Pete Carroll, I've never seen him more sad. Normally he's that energetic coach on the sideline, even going back to USC, that's what he was, and just distraught from pretty much minute 1 of this game. So, Pete, might be time to hang him up. You are 72 years old, but I don't know. He's won a Super Bowl before, so he knows a lot more about football than me. But I don't know, man. If I'm 72, I might just ride off into the sunset. Bill Belichick, that might also apply to as well.
Yeah, and there's been speculation that there's a buyout, and UNC came out and they're supporting Belichick. But for both of those guys, it's like, why are you trying to restart teams at this point in your careers? But I digress. We'll get back to the Colts. But yeah, that's a good point. It's like things are looking down with the Raiders, and I really don't know where North Carolina's going, but. Whatever, man.
Yeah, what do you guys have to prove at this point? You guys are some of the greats. Don't tarnish legacy. Colts defense, though, getting back to the Colts side of this, looks very good. They are now +5 on the turnover differential on the year. One of those, Mekhi Blackmon, actually had a pick in this game of Geno Smith, one of the 9 Genos has this year. You're seeing it right on your screen. A good return for Blackmon as well. He's the guy who stepped up and replaced Xavier Howard. He played over 40 snaps. No other corner even got close to that level after Howard's retirement, after getting cooked by Puka Nacua in that last game. What were your thoughts on his play, both the pick, but even just outside of that down?
I mean, I thought he was pretty solid. I don't think he really was like, this huge game changer. He made 4 tackles, had an assisted tackle, and obviously the interception, that's encouraging to see. I do think he was playing a lot better than Xavier Howard was recently, which isn't saying much, but I don't know. I think we'll see as the season progresses, and they played a team like the Raiders who don't have these crazy offensive weapons, especially on the receiving side of things. But I'm interested to see how he's going to perform against a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson kind of guy.
Yeah, there's some dudes coming up on the schedule for sure.
100%.
The one thing I'm worried about, I looked at him just watching the game, and I was like, man, he looks kind of small out there. So then I Googled it. He's listed at 5'11", 174. And so that is really light when you're talking about the NFL. So that's one thing I'm a little bit worried about. The other thing I am a tad worried about coming out of this game, the Raiders had the highest rushing success rate in Week 5 when you take out garbage time. So obviously when they got down more than 14 points, you have to throw the ball a ton. But to that point, would run the ball the best out of any team in this week in the NFL. And we hit on last episode, that was kind of a concern for this Colts defense overall. And it seems like the offense may have taken that off their plate instead of the defense actually being better against the run.
Which is like, yeah, that's good because it's like, hey, the defense doesn't need to worry because the offense is scoring touchdowns on every drive. But it's like, what happens when the offense it has a stalemate or it's an actual.
You're not going to be up by 36 in every game.
Right, and it's like we saw against the Rams, there was a lot of mental lapses on defense, and that kind of ended up, being one of the reasons outside of A.D. Mitchell why they lost that game. But it's not something you want to see going forward, obviously. And obviously, Ashton Genty, like the Raiders are kind of finding their way a little bit in the running game. But I don't know. So against some of these better teams, that's something that you want to definitely clean up. And I don't know how much they can improve on this going forward. I'm interested to see where you're kind of at with that.
Yeah, they did just sign a linebacker who has previously been with Lou Anarumo. He's actually on the Raiders, funnily enough. His name is escaping me right now. So we'll see if that is able to be a spot where they can improve, because Joel Bachie, he was supposed to be just a special teams guy coming into this year, was not supposed to start by any means. And so maybe if you can get a different guy in here who's a little more familiar, that might help. But we talked about with the Bears, it's tough at this point to find difference makers if you don't already have them on your team.
At this point in the season, it's like you're already in the thick of the schedule, and it's like you can't be like, hey, let's go sign a guy on the street and he's going to completely turn our rushing defense around. It's like you can't really do that at this point in the season. So, I mean, if it's coaching improvements just based on scheming, maybe that could help. But it's like, I don't know, at this point, you kind of just have to buckle down and give it your all on the rushing defense.
Yeah, give more effort, I guess, is part of the answer. Moving on to the Bears at the Commanders. That's going to be Monday Night Football, prime time, 7:15 Central on ABC. They also do the Danny cast for that as well, so if you want to check that out, I believe that's on ESPN.
ESPN2.
Or ESPN2.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so you can check that out there if you want a little bit of a different viewing experience. They got some funny clips over there, so check them out.
And some good guests, yeah.
Yeah, they do have some good guests. Biggest storyline in this game, right? Just for this game, we'll take out, looking back at last year, the Hail Mary. We're not going to talk about that. We're not talking about that. But the biggest storyline is this QB battle. Obviously, these are the number 1 pick in Caleb Williams and the number 2 pick in their respective drafts in Jaden Daniels. They play the same position. Last year, it was a clear Jaden win. But I'd say this year, with Jaden being out 2 games and Caleb looking better week after week after week, it's drawn a little bit closer. So who do you think looks better in this game?
In this game, I feel like it's going to be Caleb. I could just be clouded in my judgment because I am a Bears fan, but he has the pieces and the coaching to get it done this time around. The dumpster fire that was happening last season, Caleb still put together a quote-unquote game-winning drive against the Commanders last year.
And that is what everyone forgets.
Yes.
Is that the reason it was a Hail Mary is because Caleb led a touchdown drive to go up in that game.
Exactly, and the defense led up like a 15-yard game, which set up the Commanders to even have a chance at a Hail Mary, and then obviously everything that happened after. But let's leave that in the past, Tyler.
We're a future-oriented podcast.
Absolutely,
here.
But like I said, Caleb, he has the pieces. He's improving week after week, which is not what we saw last year. We saw a lot more inconsistencies. He's getting sacked less, and I just think, I don't know, things are rolling for Caleb right now, and the offense is really coming into their own.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for the Bears defense is going to be stopping Jaden, right?
Yes.
And so when you look at a guy who's as mobile as he is, as accurate, so you're like, hey, maybe we'll spy him or blitz him, and he's able to carve up the blitz. Was one of the best QBs last year against pressure. Okay, we'll drop back a little bit, and he's able to just pick you apart in zone and with some of the receivers. Now, Terry McLaurin has been injured, and that's something to monitor in this game. The number 1 wide receiver for the Commanders is, we'll see if he ends up playing. My guess is it looks like it's trending towards him playing, but we'll see when we get that final injury report that hasn't come out as of recording.
Yeah.
But how do the Bears do it? How would you attack Jaden if you're the defensive coordinator? You're in Dennis Allen's shoes.
I need Montez Sweat, maybe a little revenge game here. I know it's been a couple of years since you came over from Washington, but just getting the pass rush, get the pressure on Jaden early, and I think we really need to be solid on third downs. I feel like the Bears, time after time, it's like, they'll have a good first couple of downs, but for whatever reason, a guy like Jaden can definitely break off a 15-yard run. He could roll out and convert on a third down there, but I don't know. The defense just they need to be solid and really force Jaden to make quick decisions in this game.
For sure. I'm looking at Gervon Dexter Sr. in the middle because if you are going to get really aggressive on the edges, Jaden will just roll out on that side. He'll make a guy miss, and now he's out of the pocket. And honestly, he's probably more dangerous out there than he is if he was kept in the pocket.
Absolutely.
So with bigger edge rushers that the Bears have with Sweat, with a Dangbo, like these guys that are not necessarily screaming off the edge with speed, I wonder if they almost QB contain there and say, hey, you guys on the interior, you got to win, and you got to win one-on-one matchups. So that's where I'm looking is Gervon Dexter's having a great season. At one point was top 10 in the league in pressure rate. Mm-hmm. You got to keep that going to try and get in Jaden's face, like you say, and make his day uncomfortable.
Yeah, and if we get a guy like Grady Jarrett back, his status is kind of up in the air for this game as well. He hasn't had a great season to this point, but maybe he can have a breakout game today, kind of put that pressure on from the interior defensive line kind of things. And like you said, Jaden's going to get his, he's a great quarterback. Yes. And so it's all about containing him. It's not about let's not have him complete any passes or let's force 3 interceptions. That's probably not going to happen, but they just need to play good enough to give the offense a chance to outscore the Commanders and just give the team a chance to win the game.
Yeah, and I think it's realistic. I like the secondary still for the Bears. Kyler Gordon, another guy who
coming back.
Says he's going to come back.
Yeah.
He's pretty definitive, but is still on the last thing that I saw listed as questionable. Right. So if he plays, that would be huge. Again, we're still waiting on some of the secondary injuries to try and come back here with Jalen Johnson and some of the other guys. But it looks like Kyle Gordon will be back, which would be huge for the Bears here. Coming up on the other side, we're going to take a slight early break here because I want to talk the running game for both of these teams. I think this might actually be where it's won or lost, where the national narrative is surrounding some of these quarterbacks. The run game is where I'm really drilling down. We'll talk about why that is right after the break. Back here, we got our last segment for Midwest Mashup. Again, I'm Tyler Hill, hosting alongside Ethan Halesha, walking through everything for me here, talking about the pro sports in Indianapolis, Chicago, and St. Louis every time. And we're talking about the Bears versus the Commanders. This is a big game. Really could be a springboard for the Bears if they come up with a little bit of an easier schedule. If they could get to 3-3 here, that'd be huge. One of the biggest things I'm looking at, I talked about it before the break, is this running game. Because right now, it's statistically the worst in the league.
That's
so
horrible.
Just a few stats. They have the worst EPA per rush and the worst rushing success rate of any team. And that's also with Caleb running well from the quarterback position, which typically if your quarterback's running well, those stats would be up. Even with that, there are 32 out of 32 teams in the league. Do you see it getting going in this game?
Unfortunately, no, not really. I think it's funny because when we talk Colts, the whole offense is running through Jonathan Taylor. They have all these weapons, but we have DeAndre Swift. So
not quite Jonathan Taylor.
No, we have. The Bears have 409 rushing yards on the season, 108 rushing attempts, 3.8 yards a carry. You can't. It's just frustrating.
The stats are not great.
Yeah, you look at the stats and it's just this is why trade speculations are happening right now with guys like Kamar or Breece Hall. It's with the personnel we have now. Monungai, who I like, is still, a later round pick. He's still finding his footing, and Roshan Johnson is just a special teams guy. So
yeah, it's not a part of this backfield at all.
So to answer your question, no, unfortunately, but I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you here. I think if they can get a running back, and I really think it's probably just putting even more resources into this offensive line, this is going to kind of be what it is, and Caleb's going to have to work some magic, which he has a little bit. And on the other side, I was looking at the run game for both of these teams. Washington's run game versus the Bears' defense, I see as a huge mismatch. Washington right now is averaging the most rushing yards per game of any team in the NFL. And guess where the Bears are in terms of giving up yards in the running game, Ethan?
If not dead last, probably bottom 3.
So they are second to last.
Yep.
You are right there. Just not a good defense when it comes to stopping the run. Washington is a very good running offense. And so that's the one thing. I know we talk quarterback performance, but I think the offensive plan for Washington is going to be, hey, we're going to really want to run the ball, establish run, and then Jaden can take some deep shots off of that. But I think they're just going to lean on Bill Krosky, Merritt, Chris Rodriguez, some of those guys at running back. and just it might be a death by 1,000 cuts here for the Bears defense.
Yeah, Krosky Moret was, even going into the season, if you're in fantasy leagues like Dynasty, a lot of people were buying low on this guy, and they thought he was better than a late round pick. And even going into this game, I did not realize that the Commanders had the most rushing yards in the league. They're 5.9 yards a rush, which is first in the league. It's like, this is a team that could get it going, and a lot of that has to do with this rookie, and he's averaging 6.6 yards a carry, which is just insane against a Bears defense that is abysmal, allowed Ashton Genty to have the best game of his career to this point, and Jaden Daniels is a guy that he could get it going on the ground. So I don't love that matchup. I mean, the only reason I think that the Bears could possibly get it done in this game is because of Caleb Williams, and the defense kind of just needs to hold on to this
right,
one.
Just by a thread. I'm going the other way. We're talking score predictions here. I have the Commanders winning 35, Bears 28. I do think the offense is going to have a good day. I'm not a huge believer in the Commanders' defense, but, man, when I just look again at those pressure points of the Washington run game, the Bears run defense, I just see a pretty clear advantage for Washington. They put all those stats up with Marcus Mariota at QB. I think it could get even better now that Jaden's back. So, unfortunately, I do have the Bears taking a loss here. But like I said, they have some easier games coming up, so hopefully it won't turn into a slide like last year after the Washington game. We'll keep that in the past. But
yeah.
What do you got for score predictions?
It's interesting because, this is a turning point of the season. Last year, the Commanders game was really the turning point of the season for the Bears. Give me the Bears 27-24. Ben Johnson and company. It's a new culture team. I think this is a dramatic game. Could be a win with a field goal with time expiring, Cairo Santos. But I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, the matchup is not in the Bears' favor, but I feel like they're just going to find a way for some reason. This is a new team.
Keep the good vibes going. And then for week 6 here, we get the Cardinals at the Colts. That one's going to be 12 p.m. Central on Fox if you have the local listings there. The Cardinals coming off of a brutal loss. We already hinted at it, but Amari DiMarcado here, this is his 75-yard touchdown run. Oh, wait, he actually dropped the ball before the goal line. And so it ended up not being a touchdown. Flipped the momentum of that game completely. Titans ended up coming back and winning. If you guys haven't watched that game, just go check it out. I mean, even if you just watch that last 10 minutes, the back and forth, the Titans fumbled in the end zone to score. Like, it was a crazy game. The only reason I'm hitting on that is just that's an emotional, brutal loss. Do you think that they can bounce back from that, or are we going to see a hangover from this Arizona team?
I don't think you bounce back from that. And it's interesting because when that first happened, I sent a text out to my buddies, and from that DiMarcado fumble to the end of the game, it was only a half hour of real time. And so many different things happened, and
everything fell apart.
It's like, this reminds me of like the Bears losing that Commanders game last year. It's like,
I was going to make that same comparison.
And exactly. we might see the Cardinals lose 10 straight games. I mean, the Cardinals aren't a great team, but it's like to have a loss like this where the game is literally in the bag, it's horrible. And against a great team like the Colts, I just don't see a way that they even come close to winning this game.
I don't either. I mean, we saw Jonathan Gannon got fined $100,000 he got a little physical with DiMarcado after the game, just the emotions flowing, when he makes a mistake like that. Yeah. But you can't, as a coach, you can't do that. And so he was fined. Again, that $100,000, that's a lot of money. And so I was going to make that exact same comparison. I just think when you have a game where you should win against what we thought was the worst, or at least a top 3 worst team in the NFL, and the Titans, they come back and are able to do it. You saw in that game how they fell apart, and I do think that's really just going to carry into the season. I would worry about Jonathan Gannon's job status. But just for this 100%. Week, I even think the Colts are better at every spot besides defensive back. And so if you go through it, like quarterback, I think that's a definite.
Daniel Jones, definitely.
Running back, definite, especially with all the injuries that the Arizona Cardinals have had at that spot. I just went pass catchers. Definitely. I like McBride. I like Marv. Not a ton there. Besides that, when you look at
and Marv's been inconsistent. So
exactly right. Some drops on the season. So I think he would definitely go there. Offensive line, breeze past that. That's Colts for sure.
Yep.
Defensive line, I think it's probably a little even, but Latu with his breakout, I'd go Colts there.
Me too.
Linebacker, that's where I think maybe you could kind of lean either way, but maybe a wash. And then DB.
They're both not great.
So. Exactly. So then DB, I would say with Budda Baker or Will Johnson's playing well as a rookie, I think I would give that to Arizona. But when you look, just go through the rosters and who's playing and the talent level, I just don't see where the Arizona Cardinals are going to be able to get it done.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. And it's like, when you're feeling better about your unit against the other teams in basically every category, outside of the DBs, it's like there's no reason the Colts shouldn't win this game by multiple scores, at least in my opinion. In Arizona, if looking at the defense, they've given up 1,300, a little over 1,300 passing yards this year, 207 passing attempts, which is worst in the league, and a guy like Daniel Jones, who, for lack of a better word, has been airing it out. Obviously, not on a bunch of huge throws downfield, but I think Daniel Jones could really feast against this defense. And the DBs are pretty good; they're solid, but the rest of that defense just over the middle looks, just intermediate passes. I think Daniel Jones is going to have a really good game today.
Totally agree. The other thing, you hit on it already, but kicker for the Colts, Spencer Schrader, he is hurt, and so they signed Michael Badgley. He's coming in, former Colts kicker, so Colts fans, you should be familiar with this guy. Not an ideal situation, but you do have a kicker, and so you don't have to go for it on every fourth down, every 2-point conversion. You can actually kick some field goals when you are in the red zone. So, overall, just I think having a kicker is better than not, and that's pretty much the analysis I got for that one.
100%, yeah. And Michael Badgley's a guy that's been there, done that. Obviously, he's kind of bounced around teams, but it's like this isn't a guy that you're pulling off the street that has no experience. Obviously, Schrader's been awesome for the Colts, but he is a kicker at the end of the day, and there's only a few kickers in the game that really are like, these guys are really game changers.
The difference makers, yeah.
Like a Brandon Aubrey, someone on Dallas is just an awesome kicker. But it's like, if you can find a guy that's serviceable enough and can make the majority of his kicks, which I think Michael Badgley's proved he's done that in the past.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that much of a difference. And I don't know, even Arizona's kicker, if you look at Ryland, he's missed a couple of kicks in the last few weeks. So I think they're even in the special teams game. But yeah, Michael Badgley, I think him coming in is great for the Colts. That's a great guy to bring in. And Schrader tore his ACL and MCL, so he's going to be out for the year, which is brutal. And it kind of happened after the play. It's very unfortunate. But yeah, I don't know. It's good to bring in a guy like this. Just to get into score predictions here, I think the Colts take this one pretty handedly, 35-15.
So I got 30-17, a little bit on that same wavelength here. I think the Cardinals maybe could put up some points just with some Kyler magic. And again, I like some of their weapons, but I think the Colts are just going to run all over them, right? Jonathan Taylor's going to have another really good game and establish himself here as the best running back in football. I'm officially ready to declare that. Are you, just real quick?
100%. Yeah, as a true running back, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see anyone playing better than him right now in the league, and so if he can stay healthy and continue to carry them, he'll be up for a good payday in the next couple of years. Now, real quick, we got a minute left, and we want to give you a Blackhawks minute because they did have their first game. Blues, we will get to you, but you are having your season opener tonight as we are recording, so we'll have some analysis next week. But Ethan, Blackhawks minute.
It was cool to see Frank Nazar score the first goal of the NHL season. Here's a young guy that just signed a big contract. That was huge, but like last year, like the last couple of years, Hawks give up the lead, end up losing this game. It's
the Panthers, so no shame. That's a very good team.
Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. But just to see even Spencer Knight, he had 34 saves, gave up 3 goals, but this is a team that you don't really expect to beat. You know what I mean? The Panthers are the best team in the league, and for the Hawks to really just hang on there, and even after being outshot 17-3 in the first period, for them to even be in the game, it's kind of a miracle, but they got it done. Guys like Carter Verhaeghe scored for Florida. Tara Vinen, who's a familiar face, he scored on a 2-1 rush, so that makes me feel good about the Blackhawks, but going forward, just need to be more consistent, get more shots on goal, and really try and match the other teams there.
Yeah, whenever your goal is facing 37 shots in a game, that's not the ideal number, right? You would like to be playing a little bit better defense than that, but good to see him holding up relatively well against all of those shots. And sorry that you can hang with the big boys here, a really good team in the Florida Panthers. Now, you want those to eventually become wins, but got to be able to stay with them in the games first before that next step. Again, like I said, we'll hit on the Blues as they have their games going into next week. We'll start phasing hockey into some of what we do as well and keep talking football. So, Ethan, thank you for being alongside me here again. Midwest Mashup.
It's a pleasure.
Hitting those sports teams, pro sports teams specifically in Indianapolis, Chicago, and St. Louis. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.